the early hours of the 21st century, the world believed it was entering an age defined by globalization, technology, and cooperation. Borders seemed less important. Economies were interconnected, and international institutions promised collective security. Yet, on September 11, 2001, this optimism was shattered. The attacks on the United States did not only destroy buildings and claim lives, they transformed global politics. From that moment forward, the phrase war on terror became central to international relations. This is the story of how a single concept reshaped alliances, justified wars, altered civil liberties, and redefined the relationship between states and security. To understand the war on terror, we must first look backward. Terrorism did not begin in 2001. Throughout the 20th century, political violence had been used by nationalist movements, revolutionary groups, and extremist ideologies. However, the end of the Cold War created new conditions. Power vacuums, failed states, and unresolved regional conflicts, especially in the Middle East and South Asia, became breeding grounds for extremist organizations. Groups such as Al-Qaeda emerged, combining radical ideology with global networks. They viewed Western influence, military presence, and cultural dominance as existential threats. Terrorism became a tool not only of violence, but of communication, meant to shock the world and provoke global reaction. The attacks of September 11th marked a historic turning point. Nearly 3,000 people were killed, and the psychological impact was immense. For the first time, a non-state actor had successfully struck the world's most powerful nation on its own soil at such a scale. In response, the United States declared a global war on terror. This was not a war against a single country, but against an idea, a method, and an invisible enemy. NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, declaring that an attack on one member was an attack on all. Instantly, terrorism became a global security priority. The first battlefield of the war on terror was Afghanistan. The Taliban government was accused of harboring In late 2001, a US-led coalition invaded Afghanistan, quickly overthrowing the Taliban regime. Many nations supported this intervention, viewing it as legitimate. International cooperation increased, intelligence sharing expanded, and counterterrorism became a shared mission. However, the conflict soon grew complex. Insurgency, civilian casualties, and prolonged military presence raised questions about long-term strategy and global responsibility. In 2003, the war on terror expanded dramatically with the invasion of Iraq. Unlike Afghanistan, this war deeply divided the international community. The United States and its allies argued that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction and posed a terrorist threat. Many other nations disagreed, demanding more evidence and UN authorization. When no weapons were found, global trust was damaged. Relations between Western allies strained, and public protests erupted worldwide. The Iraq War demonstrated how the war on terror could weaken international cooperation rather than strengthen it. The war on terror also reshaped life within nations. Governments expanded surveillance, tightened border controls, and passed anti-terrorism laws. While these measures aimed to protect citizens, they sparked debate over privacy, human rights, and freedom. Detention centers, extraordinary renditions, and drone warfare raised ethical and legal questions. The balance between security and liberty became one of the most controversial legacies of the war on terror, affecting global perceptions of democracy and justice. As the years passed, terrorism spread beyond its original centers. Attacks occurred in Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Groups such as ISIS use social media to recruit globally, turning terrorism into a transnational phenomenon. Global relations increasingly focused on counterterrorism partnerships. Some states used the war on terror to justify internal repression, labeling political opponents as extreme. As a result, the concept of terrorism became politicized, complicating diplomacy and international law. By the 2020s, the war on terror had lost its original clarity. The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan symbolized exhaustion and reassessment. New global challenges, cyber warfare, great power rivalry, pandemics, and climate change competed for attention. Yet, the impact of the war on terror remained. It reshaped military doctrines, foreign policies, and global institutions. Trust between nations was altered, and international relations became more cautious, more securitized, and more complex. The War on Terror was not just a military campaign, it was a defining chapter in modern world history. It showed how fear can unite nations, but also divide them. It revealed the power and limits of military force in a globalized world. Most importantly, it reminded humanity that security cannot be achieved by weapons alone, but through cooperation, justice, and understanding. As history continues to unfold, the lessons of the War on Terror will shape how nations respond to future threats, and how they choose between fear and diplomacy, force and cooperation.